Comedown by Kieran Marsden. I am not sure how the laws of attraction work, but that word, attraction, it is very real. There are certain people that just pull you in, magnetically. And if you was to stand them in front of you and ask, what is it you like about this person? You could not find one obvious trait, yet something cosmically, a dark energy, a substance you cannot grasp, draws you into this person. I believe you have this feeling perhaps 2, maybe 3 times a decade. And when you feel it, you know. You know this is the person you're supposed to be with, a kindred spirit. And though you have not exchanged words, maybe you have merely seen them walk into the room or speak to a friend or work colleague, you feel like you know them more deeply than your best friends. Somehow you are the same, and you have discerned all this by merely the way they walk into the room and the way they talk. You are spiritually aligned, and now the question is, how do you become physically aligned? And it is that journey you have to solve that has been the product of many best-selling novels and movies. It's what we call romance. I experienced one of these moments, a knowing moment of the soul, as I walked into work one day. She wasn't a likely candidate, sat up in the middle of a hospital bed, a hand covering her face, matted, badly dyed blonde hair obscuring that face. One eye looking out of a small gap between her fingers as I walked into the bay. I casually looked over. Her bedside table was a terrible clutter. 2 phones, recharge bank, Coca-Cola bottles, sweets, and an autobiography by the lead singer of the Red Hot Chili Peppers. She was in a pink hospital gown. Her pale leg was up, revealing most of her thigh and hip. It didn't look like she was wearing any underwear, and she didn't seem to care at all. I glanced at the piece of paper on the nurse's trolley, the handover. She was in bed 8, the first on the right when you walked in. It said she'd had an overdose. "For God's sake," she said. The rest of the bay was very still. It was 7:20 a.m, and the nurse hadn't even turned the lights on yet. I tentatively stepped over. "Hey, everything okay?" I asked. "No, not really." She laughed a little, which I didn't expect, but I found it immediately endearing. "Can I get you anything?" I said. "Why's nobody come to help me? I asked for methadone like half an hour ago. Where is it?" she said. "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not a nurse. I'm just a healthcare assistant. Do you need anything to have a wash with, any towels?" I said. "Do you think you could get me another one of these?" She pulled at the pink gown, revealing the side of it I couldn't see. It was all wet. Yep, that is what you think it is. Sick. Oh God," she said, putting both hands in her face and laughing. "Of course I can. Any towels, wash stuff?" "Yeah, that'd be great, thank you. I suppose I could get a shower," she said, standing up from the bed. She was about 5'4", and the hospital gown looked like a tent on her tiny frame. I was looking into green eyes, and on her neck was an elaborate tattoo of all kinds of colours. Not one bit of white skin was visible. Again she laughed, and stepped close to me and said, "Also, do you have like any underwear? I don't want to be showing everyone my She laughed again, and I smiled. "This is all so embarrassing," she said, reaching out and holding my forearm. Simply put, I wanted to know everything about her. I went about my work, changing bedsheets, cleaning, etc., and I listened to the hissing of the water stop from the shower room and watched her walk out, her hair wet, but she looked a lot more refreshed, heading back to her bed space. "Do you want me to change them sheets?" I asked, as she smiled and sat in the chair by the bed. "Sure, thanks," she said. As I changed the sheets, we spoke. Words exchanged quickly. Music, film, life. It felt as though we could constantly finish each other's sentences. As I changed the pillowcases, we got onto philosophy, what it's all about, how we need to be. Through the day I found myself often at the end of her bed as we spoke about everything. When I left the bay, I could feel her eyes following me. When I spoke to another patient, it wasn't long before her call came, and we began to speak about life again. I could feel the nurse staring at me through the day, but she never said a word, and quite frankly, I didn't care. Day turned to night, and as the night staff came onto the ward, I decided I had no other option but to do it. I walked back into the bay and sat in her bedside chair. As she sat there, watching a film on her phone with her headphones in, she took them out and smiled. "Almost ready to go home?" she said. "Yeah, I just wanted to say something. It's been really nice talking to you today," I said. "Likewise, you're a really nice guy," she said, looking a little nervous. I think she knew what was coming. I took out a piece of paper from my pocket and wrote down my phone number, leaving it on the table I helped her tidy earlier. "Sorry," she said, putting her head down. I've got the wrong idea, haven't I? Sorry, I shouldn't have done that. I apologise. No, it's not like that," she said. "It's that I don't have a phone. Well, I have a phone but no SIM card. I just use Facebook," she said. I told her my name and she sent the phone request. As I sat on the train home, her first message came. It said, "I wanted to ask for your phone number all day, or some contact, but I thought who on earth would want me, a bag of bones, that's also an addict. Sorry." 2. The next day was spent nearly entirely on my phone. I considered fabricating a reason to go in. Perhaps I could make up a rota reason, say I had left something, but I decided against it. It would have been obvious what I was doing when I went straight to her bedside, and I didn't want to look desperate or bother her. She was in hospital after all, recovering from a drug overdose. How even ethical was it what I was doing? She was in a vulnerable place, and here was me, trying it on, as they would say. Was I acting in a predatorial way, seeing her vulnerable self as a prime opportunity for the taking, like a lion watching a wounded zebra? Is that how it might look to a bystander? I reassured myself it wasn't that way by concentrating on the question marks at the end of each sentence she left in her messages. Obviously, she wanted to keep the conversation going. Or did she? Maybe she'd just been broken down so much mentally. She just wanted to look like she wanted to talk to me, to protect my feelings. God knows. As the day passed, she didn't talk much about her drug problem. I could feel an embarrassment there, and I didn't press. We spoke about film, and I gave her my Netflix login, and she said she didn't like the selection of sweets and chocolates in the hospital shop. She said she had a special liking for chocolate orange. I said I would get some and bring it in for her when I was next at work tomorrow. She said no, but I insisted. From reading between the lines, I knew she'd gone through a very rough time. She essentially had nothing to her name. I was delicate around the details. I know she didn't want to go there yet, but I knew what she needed. Kindness. Her guard was up high, and I wondered, maybe I could bring that guard down, to show her a world that she didn't need to escape with opioids. I didn't have much, but at the end of the day, all there really is other people. Well, I decided I would dedicate myself to showing this person there is a reason to live. Maybe, just maybe, in 6 months from now, we'd wake up together in bed. I would kiss her good morning and make her breakfast on a Saturday morning. Bring it in on a breakfast tray, and our dog would jump onto the bed and give her a second kiss that morning. Hopefully, this one a little less welcome than mine, but she would laugh all the same. Later in the kitchen, I would make our sandwiches, and she would prepare our bags, and all three of us would jump into the car. And under blue sky we would drive through countryside, maybe stuck behind a tractor. But everything was okay, as she would take my hand and we would listen to Under the Bridge by the Red Hot Chili Peppers. We would walk our dog through the woods, with not another person in sight. And we would walk up a hill to a spot I know well, that looked out at a huge portion of the county, We would then lay down a blanket and lay down together and look at the fields as the sun began to set, and as the sky turned from blue to a warm orange, the perfect metaphor for our souls. She would kiss me, and in that moment, the whole world would dissolve to a nothingness, for all I would need and she is me and her. The next day I discovered she'd been moved to another ward. She messaged me saying where she was, and after helping a couple people have their morning washes, at the first opportunity, I went to my bag and got the chocolate orange and headed to the ward she was on. She was sat on her bed, dressed now in blue tight jeans and a black vest top. I noticed more tattoos on her shoulders. Somebody must have brought her some clothes in. Her face looked brighter now, and I smiled at her, and she was truly beautiful. "Hey," I said, walking in. "Who's this? Your boyfriend?" said a small dark-haired elderly woman who sounded like she smoked too much, lying in the next bed. "Oh God, no," she said, laughing a little. I told myself that didn't hurt. "Just a friend," I reassured the patient. "Oh, aye. Where's my chocolate then?" said the lady. She laughed. So did I. "You sleep okay?" I said, sitting on the bedside chair. "Yeah, much better than my first night. Thanks for the chocolate. Honestly, really, you didn't have to." "It's fine. It's my pleasure," I said. "I can't be long anyway, obviously. I'm meant to be at work," I said. "Yeah, I understand. I'm surprised you've come at all," she said. "Well, I suppose I could make a little bit of time for you," I said. "Cute," she said. "So, I didn't want to ask this over text, but I was wondering," I said. She looked up at me and began to bite her nails. "When you, get out, do you want to go through a drink? I mean, I don't mean alcohol. Yeah, sure," she said quickly, biting them nails harder. "I was thinking like, a coffee maybe. Yeah, sure. I already said," she said. "Oh, that's awesome. Well, we can arrange it more over text. I just wanted to say it's been really nice meeting you." "Are you okay?" I asked. "Yeah, why?" she said. "Oh, nothing," I said. "Are you going to ask me out on a date next?" said the old woman beside us. 3. I waited on a bench on the outskirts of town, near a housing estate. It had been a strange place to want to meet, but I'd expected to go to a coffee shop or a bar, but it was fine by me. I suspected it was nearby where she lived. A small part of me hoped she might even invite me in. Anything was possible. Her messages had been short. Not rude, just straight to the point. I said to myself maybe she didn't want to be over-talkative on the phone, save our conversation for reality. I hoped. I had brought flowers. I wore a nice blue polo top, and I was even clean-shaven. I had to even admit to myself that there had been a change when I asked to meet her, but I put that down to her guard being too high. I mean, she did want to meet after all. I concluded that she just wasn't used to people being nice to her. Well, she'd have to get used to it. After a 10-minute wait, a black BMW slowed down and pulled up beside me. The windows were blacked out, and slowly the window came down. Sat there was a huge man. He might have been my age, but he looked older. He had a tan, black short hair, shaved at the back and sides, and he was wearing a tight black vest top. His shoulders looked like boulders. A dead giveaway he was on steroids, and he gripped the steering wheel tight. "Is this him?" he said. Beyond him, a pretty girl's face appeared, with blonde hair. I knew the face. It had more makeup on now, dark eyeliner, and the roots had been dyed too. She nodded. It was my date. He pulled on the handbrake, and the driver's seat door opened. He had on tracksuit bottoms and pristine white trainers. As he stood, he looked about 6'4", and he slammed the car door shut. He walked up to me and grabbed me by the neck. "You think you can try it all with my missus, do ya?" I couldn't breathe. I tried to talk, but the words wouldn't form in my compressed throat. I let go of my flowers. and they landed on the floor. "She's in hospital, and you think you can try it on with her? That's sick! You horrible little..." With his free hand he hit me in the eye and let go of me. The pain was maxed by the sweet relief of the fresh air, and I fell to the ground, breathing hard into the concrete. "Get in the car," he said. "Mate, I didn't know she had a boyfriend." Now his hand was on the back of my neck, pushing my face into the concrete. "Don't talk back to me! Get in the car!" As I got up, I considered running, but he was stood close, and I didn't think I could outrun him, especially now, out of breath and feeling my eye begin to swell. "And pick up your flowers. I'm sure she's going to love them," he said. For the first 5 minutes, nobody spoke. He revved his engine, speeded down streets, braked hard, turned, sometimes wheels spinning, as he sped down the next street. "Tell him what you think of him," he said. The girl turned around in her seat and looked at me. "Did you really think I was going to be interested in anyone like you? Look at the state of you. Look how scared you are. Why would I go anywhere near someone like you?" she said. She was beautiful. It was horrible. "Answer her then," he said, turning the wheel, forcing my body to move to the left, then straighten up again. "What do you want me to say?" I asked. "I don't know," he said. "Yeah, okay. I don't know why someone like you would like someone like me. Of course you wouldn't. Why would someone like someone like me?" I said. "What is that supposed to mean?" she said. "What could I ever offer to someone like you?" I said. "I don't want anything from you," she said. "No. So then why are you two here?" I said. Neither of them answered. "Honestly, can you not find anything better to do with your lives than meet a pathetic loser like me?" I said. I watched her eyes grow large. She frowned at me and mouthed the word, "Stop." "By the way, here's your flowers," I said, holding them out to her. "When you decide to be happy, give me a call, yeah?" As she took them, I watched her close her eyes. She looked ready to cry. Then the brakes came on hard. I was propelled forward, and then suddenly the car door opened beside me, and I was dragged out of the car. I don't know how long the beating lasted. What I do know is bits and pieces from the doctor's report. 6 broken ribs, missing teeth. A little facial reconstruction is needed. And life has a funny irony, doesn't it? Because right now, I am sat in the hospital bed I met her in.